Good evening, everyone. It's 7 p.m. We're going to call the October 5th meeting of the Town of Trophy Club Planning and Zoning Commission to order, 7 o'clock. First item of business, public comments. This is an opportunity for citizens to address the board on any matter. The board is not permitted to discuss or take action on any presentations made to the board. Presentations are limited to matters over which the board has authority. Speakers have up to 4 minutes or the time limit determined by the presiding officer. Each speaker must complete the speaker's form that includes the topics to be presented. You may also email the topics to Alicia. Has anyone signed up to speak? No. Nobody wants to talk about anything tonight? Okay. Next item, we're going to regular session right now. First item is case FP 23005, Bobcat Village Phase 1, final plat, formerly well site 1H. Consider and possibly act on a recommendation to the City Council on a final plat for Bobcat Village Phase 1, formerly well site 1H, containing 2.7886 acres of land located east of Bobcat Boulevard, south and east of Halifax Street, and north of Byron Nelson High School. Staff?
All right. Good evening, Commissioners. If y'all recall back December of 21, these came to you, rezoned. And then a few months later, in July of 22, came to P&Z and Council for the preliminary plats. So this, as y'all recall, this is one of two of the gas well sites. If y'all recall, it was 1H and 1HB. This particular plat has 21 residential lots, 2 open space private street lots, and then 1 open space lot. The lots do meet and exceed the minimum standards that were adopted with the PD standards. Private streets will be built as 26-foot wide mutual access and fire lane easement. There will be an HOA created and will need to be filed with the final plat. Prior to filing of the final plat, just like the other gas well sites, parkland dedication, they'll have a pay in lieu of the fee. And this particular site had 1 wellhead on it. And Paul, you'll be happy to hear that we've got it labeled on civils as well. This particular site, they drilled, found nothing, and then just quit. So there's no feeder lines coming from Bobcat. As y'all recall, you got the gas easement there, that pipeline easement. There's nothing in that easement because they found nothing. And I'll get to it in a minute, but 1HB, there was no drilling there because they didn't find anything. The PD on the zoning also required a 3-foot buffer on that south side between them and Byron Nelson. We've got all the civil engineering for this particular plat. What we're lacking is the completion of the civil engineering from Bobcat to this site. They are aware, they are working on it. It has not gone to our engineers as of yet. And there's probably going to be some replatting on the town's part of that. There's some easements that we need to take care of. Staff has reviewed the final plat. We are recommending approval subject to those conditions of just getting the rest of that engineering done, which is, it is off-site of the plat. Legal review, our attorney has reviewed the ordinance to form and legality, and like I said, staff does recommend approval as is with those conditions. If you got any questions for me, we do have the applicant or the developers here as well.
Any questions?
Yeah, of course. I seem to remember when we were talking about this, something about a walkway to the high school that I think was existing in this area, and You're looking at me like you don't remember that.
It's on the civils.
Oh, it is on the, oh, okay.
It is.
And so it'll still be there.
They've got the walkway, they've got the lighting, you know, for just the safety aspect that is between.
Pedestrian lighting,
Yes, but it falls in between these two plats.
right.
Yeah,
But yes,
okay. Then I remember something about a crosswalk. Again, a little fuzzy on exactly where it was, but we were talking about lights and buttons and things like that.
that was in that area.
That was in that area
Yes, sir.
too. Okay.
And just to clarify on that point, Matt, everything in that conversation is either town right-of-way or town-owned land, correct?
That's my question.
In terms of what you just described to Paul, in terms of the in-between?
That particular area was northwest. And
Okay.
we've got the documentation from developer
Yeah.
Northwest. That was a agreement between them for that access.
Okay, one more. I also remember something about drainage that was an issue there. And could you comment on that as to where we stand or what the civils might show or what's going
Well, on this particular site, drainage was not near the issue as the other one.
That's the other Bobcat.
That's correct.
Yeah, okay, well, we'll save that for them.
Yep. But it's been, engineering's looked at it and have approved them, so.
Any other questions, discussion?
I just have something, and this is pretty simple. Whenever I see final on something, if I see any sort of verbiage that relates to an approximation, then it's kind of probably a personal pet peeve, but we've seen this on a few of these final plats now where they say it's the approximate location of the gas wellhead. I'm assuming they've confirmed it.
Yes, that's on this final plat, yes. On the civils, which is what we were concerned for, is just when they start building and doing the construction, it's pinpointed, probably within inches.
Okay.
And it is that one lot that they're not building on,
Right.
they show on that.
Anybody else? Your motion?
I'll move to approve final plat for Bobcat Village Phase 1, formerly Well Site 1H.
I'll second.
Second? Okay. We'll call the vote. All in favor? Unanimous. Okay, next agenda item is case FP 23006, Bobcat Village Phase 2, final plat formerly Well Site 1HB. Consider and possibly act on a final plat for Bobcat Village Phase 2, formerly Well Site 1HB, containing 2.106 acres of land located east of Bobcat Boulevard, east of Halifax Street, and north of Byron Nelson High School.
Okay, without being completely redundant, and I have no problem repeating myself, but I have a few key points that makes this one different. The zoning was approved at the same time. The preliminary plat went to P&Z and council at the same time. This was formerly known as 1HB. This plat consists of 14 residential lots and 2 open space private street lots. This is the only site that y'all have seen that have come to you at this point that had no drilling on it at all. So they never did anything with it. Same as everything else, legal review. Our attorneys reviewed the ordinance to form in legality, and staff has reviewed final plat and recommends approval. With the condition for the engineering, yes, that's on the staff report,
It's the same engineering.
yes.
Okay. Okay, here's your point, Paul, about drainage.
Okay, what about drainage?
This was, if I recall correctly, Paul, the neighbors in the subdivision in Roanoke to the west of it had questions. They have a retaining wall, I believe. Is that what you're remembering?
I'm remembering that, and I'm also remembering that the site has like a big swale or whatever you call it here, a gully, and
It's where the
That was a
drainage comes out.
problem.
There's a
There's
drainage
water
pipe that comes out
going-
of that subdivision into this site.
yes, there you go. That's, yeah. that's
That,
what I
that was
remember.
the concern.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's a lot of water.
Madam,
So-
going off memory here, were the sites always oriented this way, these 14? Or were they, at some point, did they have them oriented where some of that drainage was actually gonna come onto someone's property? And so they kind of shifted, and I thought they eliminated one of the lots that they had planned initially
Yes,
in order
if-
to kind of account for that, right?
Yeah, the first one that came to, we had a full house of Roanoke here. And when they went back to the drawing board, they actually shifted all of those lots as far away as possible for that buffer. So,
I also remember as part of this that we had this had quite a lot of elevation changes in it. And I went and walked a little bit of what of the site I could, and it seemed pretty significant elevation changes. So, I mean, I'm looking at this
yeah,
as a flat piece of paper, but I'm assuming that there's gonna, either the whole site's just gonna be graded to a level, or is it gonna be stepped to take account for natural elevation?
since my name doesn't end in PE, I'll defer to the engineer if he wants to speak.
It's gonna be one heck of a retaining wall.
He's got this.
Hello, PE.
Hi, David Greer, BGE, 777 Main, Fort Worth, Texas. Yeah, you're correct. There's a lot of topo out there. So we are stepping down the site. There's a retaining wall holding up the neighborhood to the west, and then we're stepping the site down, and then we'll have a little bit of grading and the open space where we tie back into existing, but it's been leveled out. And the drainage is actually, the big swale or the culvert that's coming out of that neighborhood crosses under our access drive that connects the two phases. And then we'll basically extend that large culvert out and pass the water down to the floodplain.
So what does that mean with regards to changes to the retaining wall and erosion?
So the retaining wall, the neighborhood's retaining wall, will
Yeah.
basically remain unchanged. We'll have their retaining wall, then we'll start our grade at the bottom of their wall, and then we'll step our site down as well. So we're not changing their wall.
So with the gully that's there for the water runoff, is there gonna be any changes or improvements or extension to that in order to not have people's foundations eroding away with water movement?
Yeah, so that's the culvert I was talking about that goes underneath the access drive. So that culvert will be extended underneath the street.
Okay.
And there's no houses or anything in that drainage way.
Will that be a reinforced concrete structure?
Yeah, it's a concrete box culvert,
Okay.
yep, with a pretty big head wall.
Okay, thank you.
So how tall is the retaining wall gonna be up against the core property? There's core property behind there, isn't it?
I need to go back and look, but it's 2 or 3 feet tall. It's not massive. It's
2 or 3 feet? You're really gonna grade it down then?
yeah, it's stepping down. The units themselves step down as you head east.
If you tried to build that flat, that wall had to be 20 feet tall, probably.
Yeah, it would be some pricey site work. Yep.
Any other questions or comments? Anyone?
I do just have one from Matt, and this applies to the prior case as well. It's more just a curiosity. In terms of item number 5 about fee in lieu of parkland dedication, will that be going off of the acreage-based formula in our code of ordinances? Just pretty much wrote like basic math? Okay,
Times that many lots.
great, cool.
And when is that done?
Probably when the developer's agreement happens, I would think, right?
We've asked that question.
We've already gotten,
Yeah.
we've already gotten a fee. Okay, that was for the,
Or when the check clears, that's when it happens?
before developer agreement.
Okay.
So that has to be done before we'll get the developer agreement signed.
All right.
Sorry, Matt, I have one more question for you as well, which is to do with if we did drilling on the other side, that's because we knew that there was gas pipe in that area. Do we do we have any idea of what's underneath this? Do we expect to find more pipeline or anything underneath this?
No, you talking about the actual 1HB that we're talking about now?
Yes.
There was-
We did drilling on the other one. Is there any?
Because they found nothing and it was completely dry,
Okay.
then they just
They did-
decided to,
They
that's
didn't
right.
do that in the other one. Okay.
We actually have, it's, Texas Railroad Commission, I've got files for all of these different gas well sites, and I actually have most of them are 50 to 90 pages long of each of the sites, and this one's 1 page, so.
Okay.
Anybody else?
I think it's good that they were able to make the adjustments in the lots and to accommodate the people that were here and their concerns about the
Yes.
drainage area.
Any questions, comments? Do we have a motion?
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
Any other discussion on the motion? Call the point. All in favor? Opposed? None. Motion carries. Next item, case number PP 23002, Triple Crown Estates preliminary plat. Consider and possibly act on a recommendation of the Trophy Club Town Council on a request for a preliminary plat for lots 1 through 6 and 7X, Block A, Triple Crown Estates consisting of 2.992 acres of land out of the Mary Medlin Survey, abstract number 832, located south of Trophy Park Drive, east of Nottingham Court, west of Churchill Downs Lane, within Denton County, Trophy Club, Texas. Okay, ma'am.
I don't know. That was not me. The, if y'all recall, last P&Z meeting, Triple Crown Estates, they had the preliminary plat, and it was based on zoning for R12. And the zoning was denied, so they've gone back to the drawing board, moved some build lines to make this fall in line with R15. It does meet or exceed all of the R15 district zoning standards. It's the 6 lots, 6 residential lots, and then 1 open space lot with a public cul-de-sac serving each lot. The open space lot adjacent to Trophy Club Drive will accommodate the required screening and landscaping along the roadway, and an HOA will be created. Same as the others, they'll have a parkland fee in lieu of. The previous civils for when they had the preliminary plat for R12, those were pretty much 100% approved through the mud and our engineers. We'll probably get those, I would think, pretty soon, any of those revisions, and then get them back to them. Legal has reviewed, or it's under review currently, and staff recommends approval as presented. I'm here for any questions. The applicant and the developer, they're also here for any questions.
Okay. Anybody?
One little side note, so this afternoon, I think it was around 12:45 or 1 o'clock, I received an email from Mr. Butler. I did print off each of those emails, and they're in front of you. I did email them to you as well, but just in case you didn't get them, I do have those in print copy for you as well. And I've got copies in the back for anybody else who wanted to see it. And Mr. Butler is here as well.
Any questions? Does Mr. Butler wish to speak? I knew it. Come on up.
Good evening. All right, so,
State your name and address, please.
yeah, Jason Butler, 2916 Nottingham Court, Abbymore. You guys, I'm sure, are aware. I'm on one of the properties that's aligning to this side of the development. So, right now, currently, the way the lines are positioned, they're illegal. They are encroaching over my property. The lines have been, we talked about this before, but beforehand, they were leaning to the side. The lines were just outside of my property inside the easement. The line has now been replaced and is now sitting upright, and the lines are now in my property. Encore has admitted this. They're in the process of trying to give me a remedy. The remedy they've offered me is not sufficient. Basically, they're planning to move the pole back more towards the middle of the easement. And obviously, I'm trying to get the lines buried. So at the moment, I'm in the middle of going through the Public Utility Commission. So they have a process. That process, unfortunately, takes a little bit of time. So back in August, I made the initial reach out to them, submitted an informal complaint. They came back to me in September. There's been back and forth. I've had some contacts with Encore, members of the PUC. I now have to do a formal complaint, which requires a hearing down in Austin. So I've submitted that formal request today, and I'm waiting to hear back on when my hearing will be, but I'm not really sure. So really, my request right now is, look, I want to see the development get done. I'm just here to, I have one ask, one want. I'm pro-business, I'm pro-development. I just want the lines buried because I think it actually fits the aesthetics and the quality of the community. I think we could probably all agree on that, but I understand that jurisdiction doesn't really lie with you guys. Frankly, it doesn't lie with the city. So I have to go through this process in order to potentially have Encore honor what I need to get done. And my fear right now is if we get approvals done with plats and development start occurring, it's not gonna give me enough time to go through the state, to go through the process to see if I get the approval to get the lines buried. I don't know what they're gonna say. I have no idea when I go to this hearing down in Austin, what the end result's gonna be. People seem to understand where I'm coming from, but at the end of the day, I also understand that money talks, and we have to figure out, who would pay for that. As of now, I've heard nothing from the developer. There's been no reach out. There's been no, discussion to get it done, so I really don't know where we stand with that. But right now, all I know is I'm waiting on Austin to come back to me with a date. I go down there, I plead my case, and then I'll know more about it. So I'll keep you guys updated, but my worry is we move forward, and then I have no recourse, and I can't get the lines buried. The second question I had is regarding, the use of utilities and sewer. So I understand that they're looking to link up into our sewer. They're in the mud, we're in the PD. So I'd like to get a little bit more clarity from you guys on how does that work when you have shared utilities? And frankly, a community that's not paying for those utilities, as I know I am as a taxpayer. So just a little bit of insight on that would be great, and that's really all I have to say. Thanks.
Do we have any insight into that second question?
I mean, we tie into utilities all over town, so I don't understand what you're asking, or.
They're in the mud district, and we're in the PD district, so we're in a different district.
You mean in the PID?
PID, yeah.
I don't have any insight on that.
Yeah, do we know where, if anywhere, where those do join together? I mean, we know they make one contiguous system for operational purposes. That's part of, my recollection is in the mid-2000s when that was all established, that was part of the purpose, or the intention was that it would be more or less operate as a continuous system, even though obviously there's a PID district and a mud district, but I don't know personally. I don't recall an instance where they directly tied into one another in an instance like this. If that was an issue, at what phase would that become? I mean, would it require just a separate agreement somewhere between the two or something like that? I mean, it seems like it would be a paperwork thing more than anything, right?
Maybe y'all can help me. It was February or March of this year with the new ILA with the mud? It was somewhere around that.
That was on the fire station. Yeah, that had nothing to do with it.
No, that was the new ILA because we included every part of town that was not in the PID to include these sites, the gas well sites, because if you recall, they were waiting on those developer agreements to get signed. We had to get that through the mud first. So I don't have a whole lot of insight except everything that was not in the PID, that was not in the mud, that new ILA included all.
It ensured, because there was a period of time where it was up in the air how those properties would receive service.
Yes.
So at least that's closed. So it seems like
It wasn't written in stone.
Right. It
To
was
where the
un-
gas well sites
unsaid.
could possibly not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas to Mr. Butler's question, it seems like if there was any potential, I don't know what the right word for it would be, but just sort of hurdle that would need to be crossed, it would just come out. It certainly isn't something, I mean, the plats are just gonna call out the easements, but it would have to come out whenever, plans were being reviewed, I
Yeah,
would
I
think,
can.
right?
Yeah, I can definitely get.
Yeah. There has to be
More
other
details
places
in-
in town where the two tie in together, because they're all,
The MUD's been
So-
involved for
Yeah.
the last couple months on helping with the design and connecting,
Yeah.
to.
So it's
I know
probably
where
fine.
it's going to connect.
yeah.
Water's easy, it was the sewer
Mm-hmm.
was the difficult.
So as a part of the ILA is not understanding how that was constructed or having the background on that, is the intent that these properties that are essentially kind of absorbed or brought in under that agreement, is there a structure in place where they're paying a certain share for the service as well over a certain period of time? Is that how this works?
I don't know. It's impact fees, just like the normal standard.
This property,
not gonna
though,
be
these
hit.
properties may
It's
be in the
taxes.
mud because Churchill Downs is in the mud.
This is in the mud.
This in the mud, so it's
This-
covered.
yes.
Yeah, so it's covered.
Okay.
Not PID, it's through taxes.
Yeah, the gas wells are the tricky ones because they were pulled from the mud when all of PD 27 was created, and then those little squares were left. So those were the weird ones. Matt, I know this isn't a plat question, but I did just want to ask, our little bit of frontage, it's not really frontage, but our frontage on Trophy Park Drive. There is if I remember correctly from when we were looking at some of the representative drawings when the zoning case was before us, there's a sidewalk there with Abby Moore. I don't know whether or not the sidewalk's gonna continue here, but that ultimately is in the town's right of way. So if at some point the town wanted to put a sidewalk there, if there wasn't one there, that'd be like any other street in town, right?
To continue.
Okay,
Yes.
yeah.
One other question for me, the street that comes down here, is there there was gonna be a sidewalk, I thought, up against the vacant land there.
Yeah, and they had waivers, they were gonna ask for a variance on that, and they've decided to not do that. They're gonna run the sidewalk down.
Okay. So what is the status of the other vacant piece? I believe the applicant indicated he was in negotiations when we reviewed the zoning change request.
Hello, Commissioners. Nathan Jepson, 2032 Churchill Downs. I've been in numerous amounts of contact with the realtor to purchase the property. It's in litigation with the kids now. There's no contract that can be written. There's no amount of money that would buy the property right now. They can't even fulfill the order that I've requested. So.
Okay. Then a question for Matt after that. Let's assume that somebody buys this property. So I assume if they were gonna do residential, which is what they have to do, those homes that might be built there the backyards will back up to this street on this plat?
It's not a perfect scenario, for sure.
No.
I mean, ultimately, you'd like the developer to be able to buy all of it and design it.
Yeah.
But yes, that's probably the way it would look.
Seems odd.
Whoa. The backyards would be adjacent to the street. I would assume that they would put the front adjacent to the street, because there's a street there.
Paul, if you look at, so
On the,
more
west
than
side.
likely, the design would be is that the street would run down here and then cul-de-sac. So you'd have houses on both sides. So,
But we don't
Is
know
that
what they're gonna do.
no,
No, we don't know.
Yeah.
And there's no answer on timing either.
There's no answer on the question, I know.
That could-
Just seemed odd to me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Matt, did you have anything further?
Excuse me?
Did you have anything further?
Not on this point. Well, I'll wait.
Okay. I have a procedural question for you, Matt. And before the last P&Z meeting on this, noticed that there was at least some level of notification of, this area has been marked for zoning change, and I know you all have kind of the notice criteria.
Yes.
Who's responsible for putting up the sign and staking that in a property, making it kind of visibly known that something's under consideration for a zoning change?
We put the sign out.
Okay,
We hope that it doesn't get stolen or knocked over.
Right.
We do check on it. We actually had people call and say, hey, I set the sign back up for you. But it's our responsibility to put it up, and then we take it down.
before the hearing today, did you have anybody call and say that we had put the sign back up, or we noticed it was down, or anything like that?
No, it's because this isn't zoning.
All right,
Sure. Wasn't a rezone.
thank you.
I do have one more question about, you mentioned that, we're kind of on the clock. Just for the edification of everyone who's listening, do you mind walking through sort of what a timeline looks like when we have a conforming preliminary plat like this, in terms of approve or deny by the board tonight? There's a certain timeline that goes, and since it's conforming to zoning, it will ultimately be approved no matter what. So do you mind just kind of stepping through how that looks between preliminary submission to final submission to then when staff kind of takes over and starts to get into the actual process of planning and permitting and things of that nature?
So, and then I'm gonna, at some point, if I say something wrong, just tell me to stop. So we have a submittal calendar. That submittal calendar that's online, those are the dates that we've selected based on Texas legislation on that 30-day shot clock. So we won't take a plat the day before just because if it gets too close to that 30-day window, it automatically gets approved. And so that's, state legislation decided that that's the way that they're gonna do that. It has to be acted on within 30 days. So therefore, if you look at the submittal date that any of these plats, whether it's final plat or preliminary plat, it will be less than 30 days before we have our P&Z meeting. And y'all have seen probably in the last couple of years, I think we had one time where I didn't have a quorum, and so I had to reach out to the applicant and have him pull the plat. Now, he didn't have to, but he went ahead and pulled it. So if I had no quorum tonight, on Monday, which would be 31 days, it automatically gets approved, and it doesn't go to council. So you're acting on it tonight, then gives that 30 days to get to council. And so we look at that calendar constantly, making sure that those dates, did I say that pretty right? Okay.
Yeah, I appreciate you reviewing that, based on Mr. Butler's question about timing. I mean, it's a conforming plat, it's R15. I've spoken of my love for R12 and R15 throughout the years, but I also like when power lines are buried, and we're very lucky that our town's full of them. So just wanted to hear how those numbers played out.
I have a question for Mr. Butler. Do you mind? I think I remember hearing you say that Encore has admitted that there's some level of encroachment on your property, correct?
That's correct.
Do you have that in writing? Or is this based upon phone conversations? How was that documented?
Phone conversations, but I can, let me see what I can find. I probably have something, because there's been so much correspondence.
Sure.
And it's been relatively recent because it takes so much time to get a response back, but yeah, it's been, I had a phone conversation 2 days ago with two members of Encore, and admittedly, they had said, look, we know the lines are in your property line. I can provide pictures as well. I mean, you guys can see the lines are literally over my property line. But yeah, let me look through.
And I think we have an understanding of the situation, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, let me look and see what I can find on email, and I'm happy to submit it. Yeah.
Thank you. And the reason for the curiosity is, I'm wondering from at least kind of if there's something that's been put in front of the PUC of this kind, and there's some sort of kind of admittance of, there seems to be some sort of encroachment issue, not having a legal background, are there any sort of legal considerations from the town and P&Z and how we would approach this? So I don't know that anybody's here that can answer that question, but it's something that comes to mind as a part of the discussion tonight.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I was told, like I said, was they told me that this will have to go in front of a judge down in Austin that deals specifically with utility issues. And I gotta present the story and then I'll get back on that. But yeah, that could be, I mean, I don't know when that'll be. It could be, 2 months out. I have no idea how quickly the government's gonna move on that. But yeah, I can see what I can find you from Encore on that. I've got the names of the people that I spoke with. So I can provide documentation that shows that they're admitting that.
Okay,
But-
yep, thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Jason, can I ask a question? Sure. All right, it sounds like your principal concern is that these lines are in your airspace, so to speak. Is that correct?
Well, I mean, in my airspace, no, I would say I'm more concerned that I've got a family that hangs out in my backyard. I've got a hot tub. We've got neighbors that have pools. So with these lines hanging now literally over our property line, if something were to happen, there could potentially be harm to my dwelling or my family, right? Yes, we can talk about all the other things that we all speculate about, right? Like all the EMF and all that comes off, who knows, right? But really the main concern is if I don't get these done now, when these backyards go up and fences go up, it's never getting done. So my time is now. And so that's why, like I said, after numerous conversations with Encore's obviously not willing to pay, right? The city doesn't have jurisdiction. I'm now stuck. The only route I have is to go through PUC just because, due to the developer not wanting to pay for it. So, yeah, airspace it's literally over my property, yes, but it's more just the concern of if we have an ice storm or windstorm, I'm going to have lines in my backyard, and we talked about this. We know what'll happen.
Okay, thank you.
Well, just a couple things. Prior to any evidentiary hearing that you may have in Austin, regardless of timing on the developer, when he builds, the easement lasts. It doesn't go away. It doesn't matter if a house is there. It doesn't matter if they put a pool on top of it or anything else. The easement rights remain. So when your hearing takes place, and if there is injunctive relief that's granted to you, and they come in and for some reason they say, Encore, go bury the lines, there's nothing that anybody can do to stop the burying of those lines. The easement goes vertical, and it goes subterranean. So the easement lasts. It runs with the land. It does not expire. So it doesn't matter how they build, whether they move or anything else. That relief that is granted to you will be put in place regardless.
Yeah.
Of whether there's a fence, the fences will come down, the pool will come out of the way. If any of that was encroached into the easement, it would be handled the same way. They're looking at your property. So as far as holding the development until you hear back from the PUC, it's really moot, if you will, only because the easement will remain in its basic corridor that it's in. The development will go on around it with the appropriate setbacks.
Yeah, I understand.
So if you need relief, it's going to be available to you
No, I get
on
that.
that site.
I think in theory that would hold, but I think if somebody put a swimming pool, that gets pretty complicated. I hear you. I hear what you're saying legally, but that gets a little bit more complicated once the development's already.
Not really.
But, so it's funny though, you bring up the easements though, because I did a little bit of research and I went on and looked at, the underground facilities easement that Southwestern Bell has. And basically it talks about all underground facilities. So I'm also gonna be presenting this to them, just that we might be potentially in a situation where it's not really legal just for them even being above ground, period, just because of this. There's an easement from 1990 that I found.
So the easement that you have in your hand is a template. That template is filled out and distributed for all of their easements. It's typically an above, below, around, across. It depends on whatever language you want to use that they'll throw it in there. It covers all conditions.
Yeah.
There's also an easement for the guy wire that goes into the corner property that's anchored back in there. There's an easement for that. There's another easement that goes further toward Churchill Downs. So all I'm saying is the language is enough and of sufficiency that it covers any and all circumstances that some easement holder might want to do with his easement. It's his choice. It's not a definitive, you will bury. There is not a PUC directive for people to bury overhead power lines. It goes into the rate-making process, so forth and so on, and what it is their determination is that overhead lines serve the customer base best and its most efficient cost. So anytime you look at burying a line, it goes back to a developer, an individual, or somebody else willing to pay the delta to get that done.
Yeah, understood. I mean, look, I mean, it'll just come down to if the $100,000 cost, if people are willing to take the risk of a much larger cost, you know, that's going to be up to Encore and this judge. And obviously, we'll get there when we have that
Yeah.
discussion.
And Encore, they very well may come in and put in a unipole that only has one cross arm, and they may back it up closer to the developer's property. So there are many ways of handling.
Yeah, that remedy was,
issue.
that's what was put out to me, was moving the pole over, putting the cross arm to the right. It doesn't really solve what I want. It moves a lot, gets the line off my property, right? And that's the cheapest solution that they have, that they're gonna offer. I get all that. I get the economics. It's totally clear. I understand. It just doesn't fit what I'm trying to accomplish, so. Any other questions?
Sorry about that little musical interlude, Mr. Butler.
One side note on the easement, so that's one of our departments that's under me, is on the permitting and the plan review side. And we look at surveys, we look at the original plats, we look at everything for, even if it's a 10 by 10 storage building. We don't put anything in easements. As far as I know, we have not seen, we've seen swimming pools right up against the edge of the easement, and then they may have, the decking. That decking could be chipped up or whatever, and so sometimes that's allowed, depending on the circumstance. But we look on every single set of plans that come across, and that's one of the reasons why, now I'm on my soapbox, why I try to get homeowners and/or contractors to at least come in and drop off a set of plans before they start building. Because we do have some in easements in town, but they weren't permitted. So,
Matt, on this particular plat, I found telephone, sanitary sewer, and storm sewer easements.
yep.
I didn't see anything for electrical power. I'm assuming, and that could be a real problem, that the telephone easement is the same as the power. Is that accurate?
Y'all are running power in the front, but y'all are running power in the right-of-way in the front. Yeah.
And then I noticed when I was out there, I actually went back because I missed the power line totally first time I went out. But I went back, the poles are in fact on the development side of the fence, right? And the cross arm is what Jason's talking about. I was just trying to piece all this together. And so I can understand why the power company has suggested that, okay, we'll take that cross arm and move it over somehow. I don't know how they'll do that, but anyhow, I guess maybe they might have to move the pole. As long as they're within the easement, though, everything's fine, right?
It's legal. That's what the easements are for.
Okay.
Any other comments, questions on this item?
So that will be another item that when I go in front of the hearing, I'm going to be asking for the actual easement for the power lines, because, yeah, same thing. We looked all around, and when you look at everything, all the documents, it's not, I can see the phone, I can see the sewer, there's nothing for the lines. So they may have it. I don't know. I'm going to have to go, that'll have to be something that I request when I have the hearing. But again, I need a little bit of time to make sure I'm getting that taken care of, so.
Did you request that easement from Encore?
Yeah, I've asked them for it, but we've never gotten it. So that's hence why I have to go down to Austin and get in front of a judge and actually start requesting stuff and have an actual formal complaint, because it's, getting information isn't super easy, so, thanks.
Okay, preliminary plat. Any other questions, comments,
I'm ready to move.
motions?
I move approval of the Trinity Triple Crown Estates preliminary plat.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Call the point. All in favor? Opposed? Two opposed. Abstentions? None left, okay. Motion carries. Next item, item number 4, take appropriate action on regarding the August 10th, 2023 Planning and Zoning Commission minutes. Everybody had a chance to review those? Any changes, corrections?
We've got one correction.
One correction.
change.
Thank you, Chairman and Commissioners. I believe staff put an updated set of minutes at your seat this evening. Just minor little changes to the vote, the motions and the vote for clarification. Had a discussion with your town attorney, so what you have before you this evening is more in line with what actually occurred at the meeting. Be happy to answer any questions.
Which item was the vote? Was?
It's for the vote for the rezoning on Triple Crown, as well as the preliminary plat.
So what we have on here is correct?
Yes, sir.
So the first one we have, what was the difference?
It had to do with, the motion was made to approve the rezoning, and the motion failed.
Right.
But the way it was worded, it stated, I believe, I don't have the old ones in front of me, that the zoning was denied. But technically, the motion failed. And then we called out the vote. And then on the preliminary plat, once again, it was just a wording. The motion was to deny, so instead of saying, do you have those?
Yeah, I do.
The motion is not 2 to 5?
All right, let's see.
Yeah, the wording was changed from the motion denied 2 to 5 to the motion failed with a vote of 2 in favor and 5 opposed.
Opposed.
Right.
Which cleans it up.
Right, and then on the preliminary plat, it said the motion denied 2 to 5, where the motion was really approved because the motion was to deny.
Right.
So-
And we had one
Correct.
abstention.
The motion to deny was approved. And that's how the sausage gets made.
Okay, do you have a motion to approve the minutes as,
I so move.
Second.
all in favor? Okay, staff update?
Next meeting will be a light meeting. Hutchins Barbecue, SUP for alcohol, beer and wine.
Well, I won't tip my hand on how I'm going to vote on that. But you can take a guess.
Anyone ever denied it?
That's a good question, Mike.
I recall, I've been here 2.5 years, and I know the way y'all voted on every one of those SUPs.
Was it unanimous every time? Probably was.
I do have a question. When are they going to implement the rooftop additions that we discussed?
So glad you asked. About a week and a half ago, they started submitting plans for the storage units and then for the cinder blocks. So it's under review. And then I reached out to the owners and said, well, what about the hot topic, you know, the part that was on the roof? And they said they've got some guys that are designing that before they ever get us plans. It's just going to be, this is the design and this is the layout. Something with trusses and weights and things like that.
Hopefully, it's not the guy designing the sign.
Yeah. So,
The roof question was those, I'm gonna call them small,
the two,
Screens.
the vent screen.
yeah,
For those small, uplast.
Yeah.
right,
Smokestacks,
flat
yeah, whatever they are.
Well, there's two.
those are part of the Ventahood system.
Right.
Yeah, two little,
Yes.
I call
The
them
grease-
uplast exhaust fans.
The grease ducts,
They're like mushrooms.
yes.
Are those-
They actually do that. So that's the way you clean them, is you get up there and you gotta, you can unbolt and flip them over, and then that's how you clean those grease ducts. That's also the access down for them to clean, so,
Right, and all we're doing is screening those two
that's correct.
fans,
That's correct.
right? Okay, what about the painting of the stacks? They say anything?
I didn't get an, I didn't ask, so I will.
But that is part of it.
That is part of it,
Yeah,
yes,
because
it
that
is.
was the one Michael brought up as far as painting them.
Yes.
Okay.
So nothing else going on?
I've been busy.
Mayor?
I'll make an announcement.
Yes.
Tune in Monday night. You will be introduced to a town manager for Trophy Club.
Great.
Texas.
Good news.
We will not give the name tonight, even though it's accepted, but we will announce it Monday night.
Has he given notice?
Yeah.
That's.
Oh, and boards and commissions,
Yes,
those,
board
those,
commissions will be
yes.
announced Monday night.
I assume
Yep.
not the town
At your meeting?
because I haven't heard anything.
Yes.
Monday night, council meeting.
Got enough chairs for everybody.
Good. I will be out of town, but,
We'll let you know on Tuesday morning.
okay. Shoot me an email.
Right.
That's all I got.
Okay.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, Matt.
Motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
We have a second?
Second.
Second? Okay, we have a lot of seconds.
Yeah.
Okay, all in favor? Unanimous? Any abstentions? No? We're adjourned. At 7:51 PM.
Yeah, got this down.
I forgot to announce it.